1. Introduction. RAWSEP View. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only. For home building and furniture building, for just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree, but it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lungs, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the Eco-Design Wood Stove, and International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. RAWSEP View. Purple air. PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.
Hi, my name is Lily. Andrew gave you the intro to Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates and their concern for air pollution from indoor residential wood burning. Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates, or RAWSEP, would like every near neighbor of an indoor residential wood burner whose wood smoke enters their yards and sickens the near neighbors to have a purple air PM 2.5 monitor hanging from the eaves of their home to measure the level of PM 2.5 entering their yards. That measurement of air pollution should be used as evidence of unnecessary air pollution, and each indoor residential wood burner should be shut down based on that evidence, one indoor residential wood burner at a time if necessary. The presentation by Andrew ended at 2 minutes 5 seconds. The same presentation by Emma starts at 2 minutes 3 seconds before the end of this podcast. So I am Lily, your timekeeper, and you can start the next podcast at 2 minutes 5 seconds in if you would not like to see the presentation by Andrew a second time. This presentation by me, Lily, ends at 5 minutes in. What you will see in the main content of this RAWSEP podcast will be news about air pollution from indoor residential wood burning and how that air pollution is being combated by ordinary people just like you who are unfortunately near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners at this time. There will also be news about unnecessary and highly polluting use of wood as fuel in industrial wood burners and preventable air pollution from wood burning wildfires. There will also be news about air pollution from PM 2.5 from gas-powered cars. There will also be news about airborne diseases which are also preventable with vaccines such as COVID-19 and measles and whooping cough, to name just a few. In 2025, Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates is also concerned with combating the Trump destruction of government funding for programs which protect human health through the Department of Health and Human Services, and Trump destruction of programs which fund the science and medical research plan to protect human health from preventable illnesses. Protecting human health is a patriotic act, and our defense against enemies is weakened if we are not as healthy as we can be. Heat pump rebates are now offered by the federal government, distributed through the eligible United States, are available in 2025 and are the best, cleanest, and now cheapest alternative to indoor residential wood burning if that burning is actually done to purportedly save money. Wind and solar as sources of the electricity that powers heat pumps and electric cars is also cheaper than burning, with the adverse health effects that are caused by indoor residential wood burning also come at a cost to near neighbors, both in shortening and ending their lives and in actual hospital, clinic, and funeral costs. Instead of being compensated monetarily, near neighbors should instead be able to achieve immediate relief by stopping indoor residential wood burning in their hyper-localized neighborhoods, which relief readings from purple air PM 2.5 monitors used as evidence of air pollution will help them achieve. Welcome to news about hopeful scientific and medical achievements that will also help us achieve the goal of clean air to breathe.
Episode 57 The May 7, 2025 17 states and D.C. sue over Trump halting of wind power projects. RAWSEP View May 6 was the birthday of Sigmund Freud. This might be a good date to start to psychoanalyze Trump, but we do not have the time, and the problem of Trump is probably that he is receiving money for his actions, not that he is driven to his actions by some deranged psychological need to destroy everything he is able to destroy. However, the short answer to why Trump is trying to destroy everything is that destruction has worked for him in the past. If you threaten to destroy and actually destroy something, if that something is what is impeding you from receiving money, then you win, at least in the short term. The social safety net of federal programs in American government costs money, not as much money as the federal program of military spending, but some money is spent on the social safety net in America. Trump thinks that he can destroy the social safety net and take that money in exchange for tax breaks for the rich. Let us include climate change amelioration and healthcare and life-saving research in science and medicine in the social safety net. In this example, Trump thinks, if he is even thinking outside his payday dream of delivering tax breaks for the wealthy, that climate change and air pollution can be lived within gated communities of the wealthy that possess personal things like smog towers that exist in India, which clean the outdoor air near wealthy enclaves so that climate change and pollution do not touch the wealthy. However, smog towers do not work. On second thought, worrying about the psychological state of Trump is a waste of time. What is to be done to stop Trump actions is the better and more productive question. The purpose of this rehash of news every day is to highlight the areas where air pollution, and more specifically air pollution caused by indoor residential wood burning, that enters the yards of near neighbors and sickens them, is being fought, and to highlight the times when the fight is won or winning is near or nearer. Yesterday the news from the United Kingdom was a little grim. There is awareness and protests about the air pollution from indoor residential wood burning from a charity in Wales, but localities in the United Kingdom are still making decisions to allow indoor residential wood burning based on appeals from the wood burning industry. Also in the United Kingdom, a podcast about heat pumps was shelved by the BBC. Every day there are steps forward and steps backward. We can only hope that messages are being read and understood, and incrementally steps are adding up, and we are moving forward toward the goal of stopping indoor residential wood burning everywhere. Since nothing groundbreaking apparently happened yesterday, we go forward today in search of hope, and as always in search of clean air to breathe. Headlines: The Guardian, May 7, 2025. United States STEM vs. Sports. I miss talking math with people. Why John Urschel left the NFL for MIT. NFL. The Guardian. RAWSEP View. United States and science, technology, engineering and mathematics STEM education rather than sports as an intrinsic reward system for the human brain. Rewarding young people with STEM education rather than pushing them into sports also might result in more science and medicine discoveries that could impact climate change solutions and breakthroughs in healthcare and medical cures. Or could STEM simply coexist with sports in the life of a young person? Probably not, if football injuries causes brain damage. United States TV and dystopian depictions failing to stop a dystopian future in America. It normalizes the abhorrent. Is The Tale of the Handmaid the most frustrating show on TV? Television. The Guardian. RAWSEP View. United States. If a TV program simply mimics what is happening in real life with regard to the treatment of women as a group with no hopeful alternative to the dystopia depicted, then that TV program fails. However, the editor of RAWSEP does not have cable and so has never seen The Tale of the Handmaid. Also, the profession of being a handmaid has never appealed to the editor of RAWSEP, and at least in America in 2025 there are still alternatives to that profession, such as positions in science, technology, engineering and mathematics STEM fields. United States. The universities are the enemy. Why the right detests the American campus. Lauren Lassup Shepherd. The Guardian. RAWSEP View. It is universally known now that Trump is pulling funding from universities formerly used for scientific and medical research. We should not immediately jump to the conclusion that the right detests universities or Trump views universities as the enemy. The answer for why Trump is pulling funding is probably the simple reason that money is then freed up to pay for tax breaks for the rich. United States geography has given the U.S. unrivaled security. Trump is destroying it. Gilbarn Dollar and Rajan Menon. The Guardian. RAWSEP View. We in America are far from Russia and the war in Ukraine geographically, but Trump is pulling us closer to the danger of aligning with Russia. United States. The Trump attack on the film industry is a sign of xenophobic contempt. Film industry. The Guardian. RAWSEP View. Trump was supposedly inspired by a recent offhand comment by Republican actor Jon Voight. Headlines from The Guardian explore this topic further. The Trump movie tariffs are designed to destroy the international film industry. Movies. The Guardian. The Trump talk of film tariffs makes no sense, but it is already doing damage to Hollywood movies. The Guardian. Arizona. AI of dead Arizona road rage victim addresses killer in court. Arizona. The Guardian. RAWSEP View. Because the editor of RAWSEP loves STEM and loves art and loves the power of the image as a supplement to words, which words the editor of RAWSEP is usually overawed with to the detriment of images. The editor of RAWSEP feels rather than fearing AI and the misrepresentations it can generate, that conversely AI can be used to spread true information when put in the right hands. Counter hate with love. Whichever technology you use to counter hate. Massachusetts woman says Boston hotel guard told her to leave bathroom because she was a man. Boston. The Guardian. RAWSEP View. Evidence of the creep of Trump invasive actions. When a biological woman is accused of being a man because she is tall with short hair and therefore banned without the right to enter a public restroom for women. Missouri. Mark Twain by Ron Chernow. Review the story of the first literary celebrity in America from the author of Hamilton biography books. The Guardian. RAWSEP View. The biographer of Mark Twain strains to explain the use of derogatory racist terms in the Twain books. The editors of Twain books should excise those terms in the future and explain in an afterword to every book why each of those terms were excised. Publishers could market those books with excised terms in parallel with continuing to offer the books with unexcised terms. There could be studies on how educated readers reacted negatively to the books with excised terms as opposed to how readers reacted with dismay to books with unexcised terms. Pennsylvania. Haverford University Jewish faculty decry Republican panel members ahead of anti-Semitism hearing. U.S. politics. The Guardian. RAWSEP View. The hypocrisy of Republicans denying funding to universities which have been accused of anti-Semitism is apparent to anyone. The real reason for denying funding is to fund tax breaks for the rich. Canada. Trump tariffs. Trump says we just want to be friends as Canada PM torpedoes 51st state idea. Trump administration. The Guardian. RAWSEP View. Watching Mark Carney finesse his interview with Trump in front of the cameras, it is easy to see that Trump words wash over the public in a septic stream that cannot be stopped at this time. United Kingdom. New reports tell us cattle and sheep farming can be sustainable. Do not believe them, it is all bull. George Monbiot. The Guardian. RAWSEP View. Getting everyone on the page of rejecting meat eating could be difficult but must be attempted. Besides beef and mutton being generally bad for your health, cattle and sheep farming uses up scarce land and water which could better be used for solar and wind farms. United Kingdom. A moment that changed me. I found out the identity of my troll and it shook me. Social media. The Guardian. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. Scrolling through any social media comments section will always throw up an endless succession of nasty takes posted specifically designed to get under the skin of people. Although these comments often come from anonymous accounts and it is easier to imagine that it could never be anyone you know behind a mean-spirited post, there is no guarantee in time. However, my perspective began to shift and I saw my discovery in a different light. Although I had encountered my troll in person, I realized I did not need to give their comments any more weight than I would those of any other malicious keyboard warrior. If anything, knowing their offline persona made their hateful messages less intimidating, not more. RAWSEP View. Putting videos on YouTube does not guarantee they will be watched or the scripts readerly. The best that can be hoped for is that these videos will be seen by government entities that can see another reason to back clean energy and oppose air pollution from wood burning. The objective statement or restatement of facts about in or residential wood burning pollution does not usually lead to interest reaction or tempted rebuttal of scientific facts of air pollution caused by in or residential wood burning. Often the people with a stake in continued wood burning are the humans who populate the in or residential wood burning industry. Waken to reply that wood burning is protected as a personal decision and wood burning is a legitimate economic engine for their profession, reaping profits for the indoor residential wood burning industry and costing the wood burners less than if they had used clean energy to heat their homes. These arguments are wrong since wood burning is the most air polluting way to heat a home and is costly to use as a method of home heating. The logistics of obtaining wood and the increasingly cheaper alternatives for heating homes in 2025 make these wood burning industry arguments increasingly specious. Do comments in support of wood burning rise to the level of trolling? Usually the harm is from what happens in real life. IRL real breathing is impaired in 1 second. Wood smoke is inhaled. Real medical problems are caused. Communicating what is happening in hyperlocalized situations such as in the backyard of the house of a neighbor or what wood smoke infiltrates the home of a near neighbor cannot be done solely by anecdotal accounts, although those accounts are riveting to the editor of RAWSEP. Using a resident-owned purple air PM2.5 monitor brings real-life data into the internet space and gives us a baseline to talk about real life and real problems. Trolls can babble on about coziness of wood fires and their personal choice to inhale the smoke, but the second-hand smoke reaching neighbors can be measured, and no troll can justify the destructiveness of this imposition on near neighbors with the mistaken and misinforming words of a troll. Germany. Friedrich Merz suffers shock defeat in first German parliament vote for chancellor, but RAWSEP knows Merz won on the second vote. Germany. The Guardian. RAWSEP View. Come on, media focus on the end result, which was that on the second vote Merz became chancellor of Germany. However, Olaf Scholz was annoyed it took so long to get the coalition in line enough to make it happen. Protest votes at this stage was just unprofessional according to the naive view of the editor of RAWSEP. A strong German coalition government to counter if defectively is needed. These headlines show how The Guardian covered this eventual win for Merz step by step over a few hours. On Tuesday, Merz of Germany faces second parliament vote to be elected chancellor after shock defeat in first Europe. Live German parliament votes again on the Merz bid to be chancellor after humiliating first round. Europe. Live German parliament elects Merz as chancellor in second round of voting. Germany. The Guardian. Ukraine. The Ukraine economy has greater staying power than the Russian economy, but the US mineral deal shows how fragile its advantage is. Luke Cooper. The Guardian. RAWSEP View. Further evidence that Trump is on the wrong side of history when even his economic deals with Ukraine only weaken the source of Trump intake of minerals. Headlines. The Guardian. May 6, 2025. Australia concerns about his capability. Liberal senator launches extraordinary attack on Angus Taylor amid search for new leader. Liberal Party. The Guardian. RAWSEP View. The strange world of political expectations, where whenever there is a loss the losers are expected to change their entire raft of positions in order to win in the next election. It is also important to note that the winners in Australia are the Labour Party, which is left-wing and politically progressive in sync with the United States Democratic Party, but in Australia the Liberal Party is right-wing and in coalition with the Australian Conservative Party. Go figure. Headlines. The New York Times. May 7, 2025. United States. 17 states and D.C. sue over the Trump halting of wind power projects. The New York Times. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. RAWSEP View. The federal government should not block policies in United States meant to slow climate change and reduce air pollution using the excuse of economy is foolish, because the economic costs of climate change and air pollution are real and larger than costs to create wind farms and provide subsidies to buyers of wind power electricity. The federal government is only trying to cut their own present costs to fund tax breaks for the rich. United States. Trump tariffs. We do not have to sign deals. Trump backs off big promises about tariffs. The New York Times. RAWSEP View. Trump is signaling that no one wants to make a deal with him. Either this is galling for the man who hired a ghostwriter to write the art of the deal for him, or he forgot he promised to make deals about tariffs. United States. Doug Collins says Veterans Affairs Department slashing 80,000 jobs is a goal. The New York Times. RAWSEP View. Collins is signaling that 80,000 VA firings will not take place today. United States. GOP targets a Medicaid loophole used by 49 states to grab federal money. The New York Times. RAWSEP View. Trump Republicans are going after further federal safety net money in order to fund tax breaks for the rich. United States. How the Trump closing a tariff loophole will hurt UPS and FedEx. The New York Times. RAWSEP View. It is important to note and delineate the traditionally conservative groups that Trump is alienating with his economically destructive actions. The Democratic Party is destined to swoop in and gather these alienated groups together in the 2026 elections. United States. NIH bans new funding from U.S. scientists to partners abroad. The New York Times. RAWSEP View. It is important to note and delineate the traditionally conservative groups that Trump is alienating with his economically destructive actions. The Democratic Party is destined to swoop in and gather these alienated groups together in the 2026 elections. United States opinion: not all students go to college. We need to make that okay. The New York Times RAWSEP View: it is important for college to be affordable or free so that students of merit can learn in STEM fields and become productive members of society. United States opinion: there are conflicts of interest, and then there is Trump. The New York Times RAWSEP View: it is no libel to say Trump has conflicts of interest. The ways in which those conflicts cause him to act to slash the government safety net to fund tax breaks for the rich is what should be communicated to the general public. United States opinion: 3 economists on the Trump battle with Jerome Powell and what could still go wrong at the Fed. The New York Times RAWSEP View: although Powell was appointed by Trump 1.0, Powell now represents a sort of guardrail to the Trump most extreme destructive actions. United States opinion: the Trump cabinet members a Rorschach test for America. The New York Times RAWSEP View: the editor of RAWSEP resents being lumped as a mere American in intelligence and morality, with the sorry saps now serving as the Trump cabinet. If voters look at the Rorschach ink blot of each cabinet member and see themselves, it is indeed a sorry day for America. United States: the 3 best gas grills of 2025. Reviews by Wirecutter. RAWSEP View: just as natural gas heating for homes emits 450 times less PM2.5 as wood-burning heating for homes using a gas grill emits 450 times less PM2.5 than using wood-burning for an outdoor grill. However, the editor of RAWSEP uses an indoor electric stove for cooking meals in the summer and avoids both gas and wood-burning emissions in the process, and avoids eating mosquitoes smashed into food in the process also. United States: Trump administration kills grant for PBS shows for children. The New York Times RAWSEP View: it is important to note and delineate the traditionally conservative groups that Trump is alienating with his economically destructive actions. The Democratic Party is destined to swoop in and gather these alienated groups together in the 2026 elections. United Trump executive order restricts gain-of-function research on pathogens. The New York Times RAWSEP View: Trump trumpets a conspiracy theory and signs an executive order to deal with a non-problem which is a pet fringe conspiracy theory. See also the New York Times headline: the Trump return to power elevates sever fringier conspiracy theories. The New York Times. California: why Democrats joined Republicans to block a California climate policy. The New York Times excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. RAWSEP View: the federal government should not block a California policy meant to slow climate change and reduce air pollution using the excuse of economy is foolish, because the economic costs of climate change and air pollution are real and larger than costs to make electric vehicles and provide subsidies to buyers of electric vehicles. The federal government is only trying to cut present necessary costs of a demonstration project by California in order to fund tax breaks for the rich. California: the Trump idea to turn Alcatraz back into a prison draws criticism from tourists. The New York Times RAWSEP View: no one has more common sense than a tourist visiting Alcatraz. It has been reported that this Trump bright idea of bringing Alcatraz back as a prison originated from Trump recently viewing the movie Escape from Alcatraz starring Clint Eastwood. Iowa farmers in Iowa are caught in the Trump trade war. The New York Times RAWSEP View: it is important to note and delineate the traditionally conservative groups that Trump is alienating with his economically destructive actions. The Democratic Party is destined to swoop in and gather these alienated groups together in the 2026 elections. Michigan: Ford says tariffs will cost company $1.5 billion in 2025. The New York Times RAWSEP View: Ford is signaling that even a car company using many American parts is suffering under the threat of Trump tariffs. Canada: Trump live updates. Mark Carney of Canada will visit White House amid tariff battle. The New York Times RAWSEP View: the editor of RAWSEP enjoyed watching the Mark Carney press conference after meeting Trump, where Carney spoke in both English and French in response to questions, showing another superiority of the Canadian leader over the inelegant Trump. Germany and the United Kingdom: Tesla sales fall in Germany and UK to lowest point in 2 years. The New York Times RAWSEP View: Germany and the United Kingdom elected leaders much better than Trump in protecting the safety net of their countries, and so of course the people of Germany and the United Kingdom have more common sense and have rejected Tesla purchasing in 2025. Germany, who is Friedrich Merz, who lost first parliamentary vote to become the German Chancellor. The New York Times. RAWSEP View do not define Merz by the worst very brief moment of his life when he did not have the votes on the first round, and it seems the worst very brief moment of the life of Olaf Scholz define Merz by the best moment of his life when he became centrist Chancellor of Germany at a time when the German Nazi Party if needed to be challenged and Ukraine had to be supported.
Cat's Corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. Saying the quiet part out loud. Roar. Hi, I am Tiger. Hi, I am Leone. Our human asked us to get up from our naps and start Cat's Corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. She gave us a list of internet allies which we will post for her here. It is better for your mental fitness to go to these websites than to go to bro sites for advice. Substack letters from an American Heather Cox Richardson. Substack your neighborhood epidemiologist. The Midas Touch. The Guardian. The New York Times. One introduction. RAWSEP View. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only for home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree. But it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen, and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lung, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the Eco-Design Wood Stove. An international convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. RAWSEP View. Purple air. PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.